Top stories in our news today. The Financial Intelligence Center, FIC, has revealed that suspicious financial transactions in the country increased to a tune of 6.1 billion kwacha in 2018. The Law Association of Zambia Laws has made a second appeal to President Edgar Lungu to fire Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela. Welcome to the news. The Financial Intelligence Center, FIC, has revealed that suspicious financial transactions in the country increased to a tune of 6.1 billion kwacha in 2018 from the 4.5 billion kwacha reviewed in 2017. In its monetary laundering and terrorist financing trends report for 2018, the FIC analyzed 176 suspicious transactions, out of which 80 have been reported to law enforcement agencies. FIC Director General Mary Chira says that these cases include tax assessments by Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA amounting to 62 million kwacha. Ms. Chira says of the 4 suspected offences highlighted in the report, corruption is on top with 4.9 billion kwacha, followed by tax evasion with 1 billion kwacha, while theft is at 110 million kwacha and fraud at 54 million kwacha. Speaking at the launch of the report, Ms. Chira says the most prevalent form of corruption noted in 2018 were those involving bribery, self-dealing, and a conflict of interest.
The most prevalent forms of corruption noted in 2018 were those involving bribery, self-dealing, or conflict of interest. These can be explained if I'm in a workshop kind of environment, but now I'm just quickly taking you through what we have noted. I mean, bribery is something that we cannot talk about. For just small services, people are expected to be paid. And some of the things really are unnecessary. If we all live with integrity, we should be able to take away this particular crime, because really, it's unnecessary. I think it's really unnecessary. Conflict of interest. Basically, from the cases we have handled, it's stemming out of selfishness. People sit in tender committees, they are able to approve companies that they belong to be awarded tenders. I think that is unacceptable. We should be able to have a fair ground for business so that every sector of our economy should start booming.
And speaking when officiating at the function, Auditor General Likando Kalaluka has noted that coherent, coordinated and effective commitment to the fight against corruption, money laundering, tax crimes and other illicit flows is crucial to restore citizens' confidence.
On the other hand, criminal investigators and prosecutors need to understand the latest trends in techniques used for carrying out financial crimes. Today, we note that trusts, shell companies, and other corporate vehicles are being used to hide the identity of the criminals, as well as the true nature of the activities that are being carried out. This report being launched to them has salient information which policymakers, the private sector, civil society, investigators, prosecutors, and the public at large can use in the formulation of policies and effective mechanisms to fight financial crimes.
The Law Association of Zambia Laws President Laws has made a second appeal to President Edgar Lungu to fire Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela. The appeal comes in the wake of the 9 extra counts of possessing and concealing property suspected to be proceeds of crime which Mr. Chitotela was recently charged with. Mr. Chitotela, 47, was first arrested on February 5th this year for allegedly concealing property number 148 of Farm 50A in Makeni and another one in Ibex Hill. And LA's President Eddie Mwitwa has told Q News in an interview that firing Mr. Chitotela will be helpful in the fight against corruption. Mr. Mwitwa also thinks that the fact that Mr. Chitotela has continued to stay in office, it may compromise the investigations in the case.
We still maintain our position as the Law Association of Zambia that it would be helpful to the fight against corruption for the head of state His Excellency Mr. Edgar Lungu to relieve Honorable Judge Totela of his duties, because as we said in the statement that we issued following his initial arrest, we do not think that maintaining him in office lends credence to the fight against corruption. And we also think that whether real or otherwise, the fact that he still continues serving as a minister, it may compromise the investigations and also prosecution of his case. So we still call on the head of state to consider our advice that the minister should be relieved of his duties. And if the president does not do it, it would be helpful, I think, for the minister himself, in good conscience, to simply step down and allow the process to take its normal course.
The Zambia Center for Interparty Dialogue, ZCID trustee Katela Kalumba has called for critical debate on the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2019 before it is passed into law by Parliament. Dr. Kalumba says there is need for the people of Zambia to be cautious of the implication of some of the clauses adopted in the bill by the National Dialogue Forum. He has urged people in the country to take a leaf from what is happening in Israel, where another general election is going to take place after Benjamin Netanyahu failed to form a coalition government. In an interview with Q News, Dr. Kalumba has wondered whether countries like Zambia can afford to conduct such a number of elections if they had a system of a coalition government like Israel has. He says that this is why it is important for people in the country to study the contents of the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2019 carefully.
So as it goes to Parliament, I think there should be critical debate over the proposals. This assembly type thing, we have seen the NCC, the National Convention, which was initiated by the late President Sata, and now this one. There are always bound to be contentious technical issues other than the political ones, but the technical ones on electoral management and also the governance system, which it proposes. Coalition governments are difficult to manage. As you see what is happening in Israel, Netanyahu failed to form a coalition, they have to go back to elections. And Israel can afford elections over and over, but what about countries like us? We have to be cautious. That's all I can say. I'm not judging the merits and demerits. I'm just saying people have to be cautious and study these things carefully.
And Dr. Kalumba, who recently led a SADC election observer mission to observe parliamentary elections in Madagascar, has described his mission as having been successful. He says the elections were peaceful despite the low voter turnout, which has been attributed to voter fatigue. Government has ruled out declaring the hunger situation that has arisen in the country owing to prolonged dry spells this year a national emergency. Opposition UPND leader Hakainde Hichilema recently advised government to declare the hunger situation a national disaster to enable Zambia receive the required level of external support. But Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit DMMU National Coordinator Chanda Kabwe has argued that the worst affected provinces by the prolonged dry spells were only 2. Ms. Kabwe has wondered how then can anyone advise government to declare the hunger situation in just 2 provinces a national disaster when Zambia has 10 provinces. He has told QTV News that the hunger situation that has been reported to have broken out in southern and western provinces does not in fact constitute what would be a national disaster. Ms. Kabwe states that what is more, the Zambian government through the DMMU is actually not short of any help to deal with the said hunger situation. He says, however, thinks otherwise and assume the hunger situation in the country requires government to seek external help is only using the situation as an area of politicking.
How can a crisis be just in one province? It's just one province that is affected. Zambia is divided in 10 provinces. The western provinces are just 2. A western and southern province cannot constitute to be called a national disaster, to declare a national disaster. No, there are things that constitute what we came to call it a national disaster. And we are not short of help to our people. We have what it takes to help our people. So those are just areas of politicking. People want to politic, and I don't think so Zambians are interested in politics. From 2016 to today we should be politicking. No, the answer is no. The answer is no. We have solutions. If we don't have solutions, then it calls for that. There's no need for people to panic. We are doing what we can as government, a very responsible government, a proper government to address the issues of our people in all the provinces that are affected with droughts or flooding.
The opposition alliance has challenged government to tell the nation where it will source the gold it claims it will now use to beef up the country's foreign reserves. Alliance spokesperson Charles Milopi says Finance Minister Margaret Mwanakatwe should tell the Zambian people whether or not government intends to source the gold within the country. Mr. Milopi, who is also ADD president, says his alliance is wondering whether government is or will now start mining gold by itself for the purposes of showing up the reserves. He says the opposition alliance does not see how else the government will source the gold within Zambia when there is presently no mining company that is declaring gold from its operations. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Milopi has also challenged the Finance Minister, Margaret Mwanakatwe, to explain how she will transform Mukula logs into something that enables the country to beef up its foreign reserves. Mr. Milopi is of the firm view that the measures being presented of how to increase the reserves shows that the economic challenges Zambia is faced with are beyond the PF government's capacity to resolve.
Starting with gold. Who is mining gold? Is government mining gold in this country? The answer is no. Even the mining companies who have taken over from ZCCM that used to produce gold, they have found ways of avoiding declaring that they're making gold. The gold in ZCCM that was being produced was coming from the refinery sludge at the bottom of the refinery tanks. Government then had access to this gold. If you look at what is going on in the country, these mining companies, nobody is declaring that they're making gold. Even though the copper ore has remained the same, ore is to a byproduct, but it's being taken out. And so where is she going to get the gold to show up the reserves? The Mukula tree, the Mukula logs, which is subject to so much abuse by those in power, how is she going to transform that into something that produces reserves? I think some of these things sometimes indicate that these issues are beyond their capacity to resolve.
The Zambia Land Alliance, ZLA, has called for the formulation of a gender-sensitive and pro-poor land policy for the country. Speaking during a civil society organization CSO land policy meeting, ZLA Executive Director Patrick Msole said the land policy should stand to benefit the local and poor Zambians. Mr. Msole says having reviewed the draft national land policy and the chief's proposal with various CSOs, the ZLA has realized that the policy does not appear to have a goal. He says that this is besides not having overall objectives to which all the specific objectives will be feeding into. Mr. Msole says that the ZLA will therefore attend the technical committee established to review the draft national land policy in order to engage government from inside and represent the views of the CSOs.
That presentation by the chiefs set the government roadmap. I think it stopped the government roadmap because there was clearly an impasse between the government position and that of the chiefs. And so as a civil society organization, we decided to try and mediate and see how we can come up with a document that would accommodate the views of the government, the views of the traditional leader, but also our views as civil society organization. Because we felt that not all our submissions had been taken on board. And so last year, we got all the 3 documents. The draft land policy made by the technical committee, which is a government document. We also got our own shadow land policy, and we got the submissions by the chiefs, and we analyzed them to see where are the areas of agreement and where are the areas of disagreements.
Speaking at the same meeting, ZLA Programs Officer Jacinta Kunda says a land policy has huge political implications because it should define the way that people relate to each other around land.
But we have also given a proposal instead of what is in the draft land policy currently. As CSOs, we are proposing that the vision statement of the draft land policy should read a Zambia where equitable access and secure land ownership for all citizens is guaranteed as a basis for sustainable development. So when we're looking at sustainable development, we're not just looking at investment by maybe commercial investors, people that have got a lot of money, but we're looking at sustainable in the sense that we should not leave out all the stakeholders, including women, the PWDs, that is persons with disabilities. We should not leave out the youth. We should not leave out any man or woman. So it should be inclusive. That's why we are questioning, is it inclusive or it's excluding some people?
The Zambia Center for Trade Policy and Development, CTPD, has opposed the daily 4 hours load shedding starting from 1st June, saying it will worsen the economic hardships in the country. Recently, ZESCO announced a decision by ZESCO to commence a daily 4-hour load shedding starting on the 1st of June 2019 due to low water levels in the major water reservoirs in the country. CTPD Executive Director Isaac Maipopo is of the firm view that this development will contribute to further economic deterioration. Mr. Maipopo says it is sad that this is happening at a time when the country should be making all efforts to find ways and means to resuscitate the ailing economy. He says that when this comes to effect, micro, small and medium enterprises whose businesses are highly dependent on a steady supply of electricity will be affected, as it will reduce in productivity in these businesses.
Well, we understand the factors behind the recent announcement made by the power utility company ZESCO, where they announced that they'll commence load shedding process in a number of places. They've even shared a schedule. From the Center for Trade Policy and Development, we think that this development will actually have a negative implication on the business communities, and it is actually very sad that it is happening at a time when we really need to put every effort to get this economy back on track. And from the Center for Trade Policy and Development, we strongly urge government to relook at its investment strategy in the energy sector so as to ensure that we begin to employ methods, or we begin to try options that can actually deliver on helping to diversify the energy sector.
The Cleaning Association of Zambia CAS has petitioned Shoprite Zambia manager Charles Bota over his company's alleged breaching of the cleaning sector reservation statutory instrument number 22 of 2019. Under this statutory instrument, which President Edgar Lungu signed on March 15, 2019, no company in Zambia is allowed to engage a foreign company for cleaning services. Speaking when presenting the petition before Mr. Bota, CSZ Secretary General Lawrence Makombi said it is unacceptable that Shoprite management is still working with Mr. Clean, a South African-based cleaning company, when the law is clear that cleaning must be done by local Zambians. Mr. Makombi has demanded that Shoprite abides by the law of the land. He says his association will ensure that contracts for cleaning of all Shoprite stores in Zambia are given to Zambians in the cleaning sector as enshrined in the law. Our staffer Favorite Kalando brings us more in the following report.
It is 3 months since President Edgar Lungu signed statutory instrument number 22 of 2019 that makes the cleaning contracts a preserve of Zambian cleaning companies. Members of the Cleaning Association of Zambia protested, demanding that Shoprite management cancel the contract it has with Mr. Clean, a South African-based cleaning company. They have presented a petition to Shoprite Zambia General Manager Charles Bota over the continued cleaning contract at Shoprite stores throughout the country, which is against the statutory instrument number 22 of 2019.
We have come in peace, and now we are taking our presentation to management of Shoprite through Mr. Bota's office. Now we are walking to Mr. Bota's office.
Don't be funny.
Just go and give him. He's there. What's the problem? If you want to, we'll go and open the door. Is it a problem? Do you want us to go there? Knock on the door, tell him that there are people. You haven't even knocked. You haven't even called him on the intercom. Yeah, go and wait there on the door. Where do you want to go this side? Why do you want to go the other side? Don't be funny. Just present the thing to him.
And recently, Commerce, Trade and Industry Minister Christopher Yaluma said cleaning contracts should be left to Zambians and that no foreigners should be allowed to penetrate in this industry as Zambian companies are capable of delivering. Mr. Yaluma said government will continue supporting the local entrepreneurs in the to economic growth, and Cleaning Association of Zambia Secretary General Lawrence Makumbi wants this law to be implemented without fail.
You know, Mr. Bota, it's Zambians like you who are in positions like this and with such adamance that disappoints us. We cannot go anywhere. If we have people like you on top and you are saying the law, you know deep down your heart that Mr. Clean is a South African company. There's no two ways. You know it. I know it, everybody knows it. But why should you beat about the bush and play semantics? We are Zambians who want cleaning. This is just something that the President, His Excellency President has given to us. Why are you not standing for Zambians? Yes. It's disheartening and it pains us to see people like you with authority not help us deliberately. We need your help, Mr. Bot. We need your help. All these people need your help. We need these businesses. Business out there is very difficult, Mr. Bot.
This is ShopRite Zambia General Manager Charles Bota.
We follow what the law states. Correct. Number two, CEC has invited us. I don't know if they invited you. I'm sure you're also there. They've invited us to a presentation.
Next week, yes.
Next week, yes. Correct. And we are one of the people presenting. It's a stakeholders meeting to discuss this very matter. Whether the law is being followed or not followed. And I think we are law-abiding citizens.
Thank you.
So we will be at the presentation.
Okay.
We will present our case. I think we're given 3 minutes as well.
Thank you.
Favorite Kalando, QTV News in Lusaka.
The ruling Patriotic Front, PF, has been advised to be cautious that as a party in power, it can only unite the Zambian people if it relies on divine wisdom. Movement for National Transformation, MNT President Daniel Shimunza is urging the ruling PF's Central Committee and President Edgar Lungu and his cabinet in particular to seek God. Mr. Shimunza has also advised the ruling PF's entire leadership to resolve divisions within the party for the sake of unity in the nation. In a statement released to QTV News, Mr. Shimunza has further advised the ruling PF to be worried that Zambians are looking for a honest, righteous, accountable and transparent government from it. Mr. Shimunza has also advised the PF government to critically look into the concerns of the Zambian people without any immature defenses.
As Movement for National Transformation, we are concerned with the division that has rocked the ruling Patriotic Front. It is imperative that unity begins in the ruling party and consequently that unity begins to float into the nation. We would like to advise the PF-led government to unite very quickly because the issues that the nation is grappled around with, they are so immense and diverse that we can't afford to have the ruling party in disarray or disunity. There are major issues that the country is going through economically and otherwise. And if the ruling party is evidencing decisions that are bordering around bickering and fighting within the party, it is not good for the country. The ruling party must be distinguished from every other political party for us who are in opposition because whatever happens to the ruling party has a ripple effect in the country. And so when we begin to hear statements and things that are happening in the ruling party, it raises much concern to us. The over-concentration over 2021 by the ruling party is also taking much needed attention to look at economic affairs of the country.
In business news, Barclays Bank Zambia Managing Director Mizinga Melu has observed the need for account holders to familiarize themselves with the sales tax, which is scheduled to take effect on 1st July this year. Speaking during the sales tax lunch for stakeholders, Ms. Melu said her bank is aware that its clienteles are interested to know how the sales tax will have an impact on their businesses. Ms. Melu says that this is the reason why her bank organized a stakeholders meeting and invited Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA, to explain how the sales tax will affect them.
And some of the things that we are looking at during this transition is to upgrade our platforms. We thank you, our customers, for being very understanding, because we have upgraded a number of our platforms, and will continue to really provide excellent service. And the other thing that we've spoken about is in the brand, but what's really in the brand. It's not just about the name, but it's about how do we continue to bring your possibilities to life. And regardless of what we're doing today, is just what it's all about. How are we bringing your possibilities to life? Regardless of how, we may think, okay, sales tax, how is it going to work? As ABSA, we come in partnership and say, let's make sure that we are able to bring this and make sure that it's a possibility to the way that you are running your businesses.
And speaking at the same event, ZRA Director in Direct Taxes, George Male, has explained that sales tax would be charged on all taxable goods and services supplied in or imported in the country by a business at every stage in the supply chain.
In addition to the last VAT return, the VAT withholding agents will be required to submit a special final return. Records for VAT transactions will continue to be kept for the statutory period of 6 years. After the effective date of sales tax, auditors will be able to audit transactions for VAT subject to the 6-year limit. Any accrued and valid refund shall be payable to the relevant supplier even after repeal of the VAT Act. VAT transactions will remain valid for 3 months as prescribed in the VAT legislation. So if there are any adjustments that need to be done, for instance, an invoice has been cancelled, all those things should happen in the 3 months before the final time.
And finally, in our news, people in the country have been urged to support the latest austerity measures the government has announced to reduce the country's fiscal deficits. Zambian DNA spokesperson Spokim Lemwa says his organization believes that government means well to introduce such new rigorous measures. Ms. Mlemwa has since called on those charged with the responsibility of managing the national treasury and coffers to adhere to the announced austerity measures. He has told QTV News in a walk-in interview that the Zambian DNA is of the view that reduced government spending, among other austerity measures, is good for stimulating economic growth.
Indeed, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu had demonstrated the political will in tackling head-on the country's economic woes. The austerity measures, which include reduced government spending and procurement of goods and services only when the funds are available, is good for stimulating economic growth and improving the Zambian people's welfare. However, we expect those charged with the responsibility of managing the national treasury and coffers to adhere to the austerity measures, and every patriotic Zambian to support government as they mean well for the country. More so, Zambia is among many other countries in the world, including the world's biggest economies, which are grappling with economic woes but making strides in tackling the current problems.
Top stories in our news before we wrap up the news. The Financial Intelligence Center, FIC, has reviewed that suspicious financial transactions in the country increased to a tune of 6.1 billion kwacha in 2018. And the Law Association of Zambia LAS has made a second appeal to President Edgar Lungu to fire Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chidotela. That's all from our news desk. Bye-bye and God bless.